Mountains, mountains, and even more mountains. That's the frightening reality for the cyclists as the Tour de France continues to make its way over the French Alps. Well, Jan Ullrich is still the name on everybody's lips in this year's Tour, and even though the young German is a relative newcomer on the international road cycling circuit, as for Australians, he's been around for many, many years. We first got a taste of his raw talent way back in 1993 when Ullrich won the Commonwealth Bank Cycle Classic.
In the sprint finish, Mike Weissman, the rider who won this race overall 1 year ago, is the perfect lead-out man for Jan Ullrich, his teammate in the brown points leaders jersey. Around the final bend in Goulburn, and Mike Weissman moves to one side as Ullrich now moves clear for the 20 seconds. That's all he needed to take the leader's yellow jersey. An easy victory and the third stage victory of the race for him, the 7th in total for the Germans.
Yes, Jan Ullrich there, and I guess many Australians knew back in 1993 that he would be one day the champion that he is today. Many people are saying the only way Jan Ullrich can lose this year's Tour is if he falls off his bike or sustains a major injury. Well, anything can happen today. We're up to stage 14. There are 3 very steep mountain climbs here in the French Alps. The third and final one being here in the ski resort village of Courchevel. It's a climb of around 2,000 metres, so we'll wait and see what happens to Ulrich Veronk, and maybe even Orlano may come into the picture today. Let's see how the next chapter of the Tour de France unfolds. Your commentators, as usual, Phil Liggett and Paul Sherwood.
Most of Marco Pantani's appeal actually comes from his look. His shaved head, his large ears and an earring have earned him several nicknames over the last few years. His advantage comes from the fact that he weighs in at just 56 kilos, making him at least 10 kilos lighter than most other riders. Once he's on the climb, his power-to-weight ratio approaches that which the stronger men have on the flat. When you combine this to his amazing courage and ability to accelerate again and again, his attacks become almost overwhelming.
Well, the race hasn't gone the way of Pantani at the start today, because on the climb of the Col du Glandon, it was in fact the Festina team who were setting the pace all of the way up till they reduced the front group to round about 20 riders. Ullrich was there as Veronk went over the top in first place ahead of teammates Laurent Dufaux and Pascal Hervé. Casagrande was 4th. Ullrich went over in 5th place. But on the way down, Ullrich looked very, very nervous indeed and dropped away from the leaders. And as the leaders pulled away, he was going down the mountain 6 on the road. 5 riders, 4 of the Festina, piled on the pressure. So there was a chase right down to the valley, and then I think the yellow jersey realized he wasn't going to cross the gap. He sat up, he looked over his shoulders, and he waited for a big group of riders coming up, which included Bjarne Riis. Further along the road, Richard Veronk, Laurent Dufaux and Casagrande went ahead because they got rid of Laurent Brochard and Pascal Hervé, and then it became a pursuit because behind Bjarne Riis, Jan Ullrich and Escartine became the pursuers. And now as we climb up towards the summit of the Col de la Madeleine, you can see the size of the crowd here. Jan Ullrich is now starting to lift the pace a little bit because the front group is completely split up. There's only Richard Veronk left up there. He dispatched first of all Casagrande, then went Dufaux. They passed straight through this group of 3 chasers and are now behind the field. And Paul Pantani is 3 minutes 20 down. Orlano is 3 minutes 40 back.
Well, Veronk has really done a good job in getting rid of all the other contenders for a place on the podium this afternoon, and although he did put Jan Ullrich into difficulty on the descent, Ullrich has not panicked. He waited for his teammate, and he's now starting to put the situation to right.
And the big crowd enjoying the sight of the polka dot jersey, rightly where he should be. If you're leading the King of the Mountains, you should be on the front at the biggest climbs of them all. There's the board telling us 1 kilometre to go now to the summit of the Col de la Madeleine. A massive crowd here on this all-category climb. 7.6% is the average gradient of this. And I don't think Richard Veronk has sat down since he waved goodbye to Laurent Dufaux. Dufaux, in fact, has blown terribly because he's gone right through the chase group of Ullrich, Escartine and Riis.
But he's still holding that gap at 23 seconds over the group with the yellow jersey. In fact, they look like they've closed it down an awful lot over the last 200 metres.
I think you're right, because there's been a massive acceleration here since Ullrich got back onto the front. He started to go quicker again, and maybe he'd like to be on the back wheel of Veronk before the descent starts this time.
Most certainly that he would. The gap they're giving us is still around the 20 seconds, in fact 21 seconds officially, but I feel it may well be a little bit less than that, as Richard Virenque climbs as what the French called à l'énergie, just using all of his energy, all of his body, just to try and keep his machine going upwards.
Well, he never seems to have a problem on the hills, Richard Virenque. He's won this King of the Mountains competition for the 3 years past without any real challenge at all. They've never even offered him a challenge in the mountains, and it appears to me it's exactly the same this year. They seem to accept he's the best climber for the points, and he's going to win this for a 4th year straight at a canter. He knows they're coming, he knows they're not very far behind, and he's a little bit between the devil and deep blue sea now, because he's got the big climb still to come. And if he's thinking of a stage when he's never had one in the Alps before, then he might wait for this group to latch on and try again on the climb up to Courchevel.
Well, that would be the most sensible option for him now, because once he goes over the top of the Col de la Madeleine here, he still has 62 kilometers to go, and that's around about 43 miles, which is an awful long way to go on your own.
It is indeed, especially on these roads. And remember, he's been out in front now since they started the descent of the Col du Glandon. And they went over the top of that at just 36 kilometers covered today. That's about 24 miles. Well, if it's up to the crowd, Paul, they'll drag him to the top the way they're cheering him here.
Well, he did actually say to me the other day that when he was riding that time trial, he felt as if the whole of France was pushing him along, and I think that's what he's hoping for today, that he would get pushed over the top of this climb and held by the French people all the way to the finish. But behind, Jan Ullrich is doing a very good job now in pegging back the leader of the King of the Mountains very, very slowly and very surely.
Well, Richard is the man who gets the most letters here on the Tour, which comes to the Tour mailbox, and all of them from French supporters. And every day you can rely he gets himself in front of those television cameras. Heading up now towards the summit of this big col, the Col de la Madeleine, one of the most famous cols in the Alps in any Tour de France when it's used. And now the big descent plunging down to the valley, and then it'll be on to the final climb of the day. More points in the bag, and these are the big points on the all category climbs, as he now makes the King of the Mountains jersey seemingly his for another year. Looks over his shoulder. He's over the top, the clock starts, and let's see what sort of a gap he's got. He's a terrific descender, but he might well decide to take it easy on the way down now, because this man, it's been a very, very tough last few kilometers since the Glandon. He's had to chase ever since the last col. He's still a little bit behind, but not by a lot. It looks to be just on that 20-second mark as Bjarne Riis goes through on the inside, and with them too, that great Spanish climber Escartin.
Well, now you can see that Ullrich is going into second position there, because he wants to use the lines of Bjarne Riis around the corners.
Well, there we are. The leader's over the top of the Col de la Madeleine. There is Laurent Dufaux. Hasn't lost that much. He'll descend well and probably latch up with the yellow jersey on the way down. It's a long, long way down to the bottom. And here comes Marco Pantani. He's just arriving at the 1 kilometer point, so he's still an awful long way behind, and he's still got a lot to do if he's going to win this race when we get to Courchevel. Well, just look at the way that Ullrich comes down these mountains today. He really is very nervous indeed. He's not showing any of the elegance of the fine descenders of this race, unlike Richard Virenque, who is absolutely marvellous on the way down, and he always holds his gains coming off the mountains.
Entries to SBS television.
And now, as the riders approach the 10 kilometers to go, banner on the climb up to Courchevel. Jan Ullrich here is alongside Richard Virenque. Virenque was away on his own. He was caught, in fact, by Ullrich, Riis, Escartin and Dufaux. But then came a flurry of attacks and counter-attacks, every one of those riders having a little dig for themselves. But it's this attack that seems to have worked, with Virenque now riding alongside the maillot jaune. Behind by about 30 seconds is Riis and Escartin, and Dufaux has dropped right away from the picture. And Pantani is still over 3 minutes back.
For 3 minutes 50 at the last time check, so a very tough day for the little Italian climber. The two men further down the climb here, Escartin and Bjarne Riis, trying to get back into contention, but for them, I think the day is over. At 35 seconds for them, it's really just a question of getting to the summit.
Well, there was a time when both of those riders held a little lead over the rest, but they were countered. and no one really has been able to withhold the accelerations of these two. They are going up side by side in tandem as they go up through Courchevel 1550 here, then we climb on to 1600 and so on as we climb up the levels of this village which lies on the mountainside in one of the prettiest mountain regions of France.
This really is, I think, one of the hardest parts of the course. They turn off to go through the town at 1,550 meters and a very steep corner as well as they come right through the center of town here. But amazing day really for Jan Ullrich. I never thought I would see him put into difficulty on the downhill sections. I always expected his weakness to be when they were going uphill.
Well, it's been a strange tour, Paul, hasn't it? And now we're seeing Richard Virenque neutralized by Jan Ullrich. On the climb now, Ullrich does not look in any type of trouble at all. He's even tried to get rid of Virenque. He's failed so far in doing that. But if he comes down to a sprint, it might yet be his day. And if he wins today, that means he'll have won in the Alps, the Pyrenees, and the time trial. And that is something that the great Miguel Indurain never did.
It's a remarkable sight to see these two riders, completely different styles. Every now and again, Virenque gets out of the saddle again, using all of his upper part of his body to try and generate as much energy as possible, while on the other hand, Jan Ullrich just sits there, keeps his legs going round, he's firm on his machine, but it looks as if he's having a slight problem with his gearing.
And Bjarne Riis today probably climbing into third place overall because of Pantani being so far behind, unless Pantani has a little bit of an inspired climb up to Courchevel. And Escartine also doing himself some favours. He lies 7th overall in the race right now, but Alano with Pantani having another bad day in the mountains.
Still a very long way to go to the summit of this climb, and for the last few kilometers Jan Ullrich has been very happy just to sit in the slipstream of Richard Virenque, letting Virenque do all of the work. And I think he's a little bit worried about a flattening rear tire, because he keeps looking down to his rear wheel, bouncing on the seat a little bit as if to indicate maybe the tire is going down slowly.
Well, let's hope not, because if either of these riders stop, the other one will be off like a scalded cat, I'm sure about that. As we now swing back, a little detour there into Courchevel 1550 off this road. We've now come out of the town, back onto the road, as we head up now to Courchevel 1600, and then we'll go on to 1800 and 2000, and even higher than that, because we finish actually up by a little small airport, which is right on top of the mountain.
Now, if Jan Ullrich does have a problem now, he's not going to get a very quick wheel change as well, because the team car is still a way back down the hill here, because it's behind Bjarne Riis for the moment, because the gap between these two riders is not sufficient enough to let them in.
And Ullrich continues to climb steadily alongside the polka dot jersey of the King of the Mountains this year. There's the race director on the left of our picture. And so always has the best seat in the house as he watches the riders come up the mountain.
Well, after all, Phil, it is his race.
That's true. That's true, and this race more popular than ever. A little bit further back down the group here, there's Casagrande, 113, 121 is Peter Luttenberger. Alano should be in this group, 181 is Pantani, there he is. He's climbing still probably now the best part, Paul, of 2+ kilometers behind.
Well, it's amazing, really. The severity of the racing today has actually nullified the possibility for all of the climbers. It's been just too hard for them. These are the kind of men who really can only open it up once or twice during an event like this. And today, the action started straight from the first ascent.
We'll never know if that was intended or not, but the chance was there, and the Festinas tried to take it. Riding here, 3rd and 4th on the road, it's still the ungainly figure of Fernando Escartine, who seems to crawl all over his bike as he climbs up the mountain, while that big solid frame of Bjarne Riis just sits there knowing that his teammate is probably going to increase his lead in the yellow jersey competition over everyone except Richard Virenque today.
And if the situation stays like this, it will be a good one too for Richard Virenque, because he will confirm his position in 2nd place in the overall standings, giving him a little bit more leeway over Bjarne Riis going into the final time trial.
Yes, and he'll remember what he did to Bjarne Riis last year in the final time trial, took half of his lead away from him. But I feel this year that Ullrich is going to keep on building, but tomorrow is a very tough day. And we finish on the Col, we don't finish on it, but the last climb of the day is the Juclin, which is an absolute brute of a mountain before we drop down to the actual finishing line in Morzine. And if you're having a bad day, then that will really confirm it for you. Looks as though Luttenberger's in a bit of trouble now, Paul. He's dropping back here.
Well, it has been a tough day for everyone out there. Only 95 miles, 148 kilometres, but Luttenberger really suffering to stay in contact with the group in front of him. The pace all of the time really in this group being set by the Banesto riders.
And now the riders are approaching 5 kilometres to go, and still the two of them are together. And no sign of each or other one attacking, Paul. It looks as though they're going to tempo their way to the line here.
Well, they have tried to attack each other several times over the last few kilometres, but I feel they're both around about the same level of fitness at the moment, the same level of fatigue as well, because every time one attacked, the other responded almost as quickly. Interesting to see, though, for the last few kilometres, it's always been Richard Virenque who's been at the front setting the pace, and the yellow jersey of Jan Ullrich has been content just to sit there in second position, just keeping an eye on the Frenchman, waiting to see if there's any chance of him attacking him one final time.
Well, Ullrich with 6 minutes 22 seconds in hand over Virenque. All of the attacking must come from the Frenchman. I know that Richard Virenque would dearly love to win this stage, but I don't think that Ullrich can resist having a shot at the line if he sees it coming at him. There under the same 5 kilometre banner now is Bjorn Ries riding on the wheel of Escartine. Ries has always looked in a little bit of trouble behind Escartine, but on the other hand, he keeps coming back up alongside him. The gap we've made, that is 57 seconds, so they are dropping away from the two at the front as we start to now make our way up for the last 3 miles of this mountain as we go through the town of Courchevel 1850 and head on up to the finishing line, which is above at the airport.
Well, it really is a tough actual final climb up here as well. I think a bit of a surprise to a lot of riders when they will come up here towards the end of the stage, because you think when you get to the 1850 mark, that's the summit, but it still then climbs all the way up to the altiport right up at the top.
It's a little bit unfair, I always think that. We all expected the riders to have stopped in the town here. But now we're going to climb right up to the right there. You can see on the slopes the runway of the airport. It's only a small airport, but then when a plane lands uphill, it usually stops pretty quick.
And they do have the advantage of taking off downhill and straight into the valley.
But look at this now. Escartine is trying again to rid himself of Ries, and there doesn't look to be too much of a reaction from Bjorn Ries at this point. Escartine has accelerated. I don't think he's got much hope of catching the two up front, but he wants to rid himself of last year's Tour winner. 2 kilometres to go now for Richard Virenque and Jan Ullrich. Now the big question that remains unanswered today is Ullrich going to try and take the stage for himself. Racing to third place at the moment is the Kelme rider Fernando Escartine. He's rid himself of Bjorn Ries, and even so, Paul, I think Ries will claim third place overall today.
Well, certainly, because Marco Pantani, who was third overnight, is a long way down the mountain, still around about 3.5 minutes in arrears, and that is where the riders are going up to, just at the top of the airstrip there.
At the very top of our picture, they're essing their way up the zigzags, past the chalets, out into the open countryside again. Now, Ullrich comes up on the shoulder of Virenque. They're both getting just that little bit twitchy, I think. Virenque has kept the pace going all the time, and a fine acceleration here coming from Escartine. He's beginning to fly up this mountain. If they hesitate at the front, he might get on.
Well, he's knocked back a few seconds there, 45 seconds I made it on my watch, as he's trying to get across, but these two riders at the front are really setting a very good pace indeed, and I'm not sure that Escartine has enough time to catch them.
And slowly but surely, Virenque, oh dear me, well, at least he fell on his face and he's okay. But on the climb here, these two riders are concentrating so hard now on holding their pace high. Virenque is being forced to lead. He's been an absolute hero today, Richard Virenque. Ever since the climb of the Glandon, he has been on the attack. But Ullrich has been brought back into this race by his team captain, Bjorn Ries. Ries has put him in this position to control this race right to the end. And another day in the Alps will be ticked off tonight by Jan Ullrich.
He'll be ticking them off very quickly, I think, because tomorrow is really the last chance these riders have a crack at him, trying to blow him away from the top of the leaderboard. But he could go into the last day with at least a 6-minute advantage, which is quite remarkable.
These are certainly big time gaps. But, you know, Virenque never looks for any help from Ullrich, who just sits there calmly in his slipstream. Massive crowd again on this climb. You can just think of the number of people who have watched this Tour de France this year on the roadside. Literally millions and millions of them.
amazing, the crowd. They must have travelled most of the night to travel across here from the Alpe d'Huez to just see this race for one final time. There's the banner that they've been looking for the last half an hour, I would think. The kite indicating to them there's just 1 kilometre remaining.
1 kilometre to go as we have to duck through the tunnel underneath the air runway. The airstrip, there it is. And they'll come out of the tunnel, and then they'll have to line up and concentrate on the finish. This is going to be a most interesting ride to the line here. Virenque will be fuming if Ullrich wins it, because he really wants it today.
He most certainly does, and if any man does deserve to take that victory, it's Richard Virenque. He was ahead alone for almost 80 kilometres, 50 miles, and he really has tried to do everything to take the Tour de France by the scruff of the neck today. He set the pace all the way up this climb, and now Ullrich just moving up alongside him, maybe just to make him a little bit twitchy, but I wonder if Ullrich will be just happy to take second place.
Well, it's very difficult to tell, but I feel Ullrich is a winner by nature, and he's had a win in the Pyrenees. He's had a time trial win. A win in the Alps would almost make this look such a good and great Tour victory for him.
Still Virenque, not even looking across now, still setting the pace, always out of the saddle, 800 metres to the summit of the climb, and always the yellow jersey of Ullrich, just content to sit behind and keep an eye on his closest opponent.
Well, Miguel Indurain was never a winner of a road racing stage during his 5 years as winner of the Tour de France. Ullrich already has won one in the Alps. He's won the time trial as well. And now could he be taking his third stage win? He looks very, very cool, calm and collected. Virenque has set the pace virtually all of the way up here. And the only man that could control Virenque and his accelerations on the lower slopes was Ullrich. And Ullrich even tried himself to drop Virenque without success. And Ullrich not doing anything about coming yet. Virenque certainly doesn't trust him as he looks over his shoulder there. And Ullrich is going to see the finish very, very shortly. 300 metres to go now. Richard Virenque continues to ride towards the line. Jan Ullrich just stares forth. Looks down once more now as Virenque moves him across towards the barriers. Our right, now it's our left as we go behind.
And all the time, Virenque looking back there just to see if there's going to be any reaction at all coming from Ullrich, but still no emotion on his face. Richard now starting to look very nervous indeed, waiting for some kind of reaction as Ullrich gets out of the saddle.
Well, for a minute there, I was feeling as though he was going to give it to Virenque, but I'm not so sure now. As Richard Virenque kicks for the line, he looks over his shoulder, and he's won it! He took it as easy as you like, and Ullrich was quite content to follow him to the top because he knew he wasn't going to take a second away from him. So this has been a good show of defiance too by Escartine. As he crawls up over that last little climb. Behind him somewhere will be Bjarne Riis. And Escartine gets third place, 46 seconds back. And another man who's had a great day today is Laurent Dufaux. He too has yo-yoed up to the leaders and gone back. He's just come back up to Bjarne Riis and he's taken him on the line. So Laurent Dufaux gets fourth and Bjarne Riis gets fifth, but he should be up to third overall tonight.
Well, Phil, Marco Pantani's going to come up to the line and take sixth place. He's made one of the fastest ascents of this final climb here, but what he really needed to be was in the front group at the bottom, and he's the man who could have got the victory this afternoon, but for him, it wasn't going to be.
So, sixth place for Pantani, 3 minutes and 6 seconds down.
Well, you've got to hand it to Richard Virenque. He really is a fighter in every sense of the word. Finally wins the stage today ahead of Jan Ullrich, the man of the moment, and a very popular result here, of course, on French soil. Let's have a look at the stage results. Virenque first, the same time as Ullrich, Escartine third, Dufaux fourth, and Bjarne Riis fifth. You've also got to hand it to Bjarne Riis. A lesser rider probably would have gone home a few days ago. Bjarne Riis knows he can't win the 1997 Tour de France, but he is helping his #1 rider, Jan Ullrich, all the way to Paris. Let's now take a look at the GC standings. Ullrich in front still, 6 minutes and 22 seconds ahead of Virenque, and Ullrich, or Riis rather, has moved up to #3 with Pantani fourth. It really has been an exciting tussle today on the mountain here in the French Alps. There'll be more tomorrow. We're going into Switzerland. Join us, please. This is Mike Tomalaris. Until tomorrow, good night.